Hi everyone. In this short video, I'm going to talk to you about how to effectively ask questions on Piazza to help make sure that you get an answer quickly and without much back and forth. So as you know, Piazza is the platform that we're using to ask questions and get answers from TAs or from each other. And there have been lots of great questions, lots of great discussion happening. But I have noticed that there's a handful of questions, and you may have noticed this with your questions too, where you might ask a question and you're not getting a very quick answer, or it sits unanswered for a while. And I want to help make clear to you how to go about asking your question in a way that makes it easy for us to give you an answer and quick. So let's talk about, let's look at what a workflow should look like. When you're writing your code, you have a couple of options. My recommendation is to always write your code in an IDE, always. And so I would say either do it in like Mimir IDE or in Replit. Because if you're doing it in Replit, you can run your code, which is really valuable. It makes it much easier to run something, print hello, to write something and then see how it behaves when you run it. Python 3 main.py. So let's look at an example here. If we were working on question 1 on the lab, you could paste in the skeleton code and just start. So write a function named double, which has one parameter. So def double takes one parameter, num. Now let's say we write some code that's return, okay, num times num. So first of all, you'll notice, whoops, I misspelled this here. Let's say I left that misspelling in. The first kind of issue you'll run into is when you run your code, right here, you'll see what your error is. And the error message points to where your error is. It says invalid syntax on line 8. And the red squiggles give you a hint, but notice that they're not in the right place here because actually the issue is that return is spelled wrong. All right, so that's the first thing. Now when we run the code, we can see that the code actually is built and runs, but we don't see any output because we never called our function. So let's say we make, I don't know, result equal to double of 10. We're going to print double. So now if you run your code, oops, we want to print the result. Okay, our code now runs, it prints 100. Okay, now you're pretty confident. You can get rid of this and copy the code you just wrote into Mimir. So if I come in here, I paste it in, I hit Command S to save, and now you can run the tests to see what the error is. Or if there's no error, see if your code passes. Okay, but here something is not right. Let's see what it is. So how do I read this? Don't panic when you see this. Sometimes the output differs a little bit. The input of the test case oftentimes isn't very useful. This sometimes shows you what our test case autograder looks like. The execution stack trace will show you if there's some sort of error when the code runs, which here there isn't. But this can be a little misleading because this is the program execution stack trace for our autograder. So sometimes the autograder will run just fine, but there's an error in your code. And so you should look at all of the boxes and see what you can find. So here, let's see. Here, looking at the code's output, this is the autograder's output, it says, assertion error, 361 is not equal to 38. And you can see here, it was doing self.assert equal ret value negative 38. So that makes me think that we should have been returning 38, negative 38. And in fact, we can see that here. In the code that we were using to test your code, it calls your code functions.double negative 19, and then it checks that the result is negative 38. But for some reason, my code is returning 361. Now, at this point, if you're not sure what's going on, you want to come over to Piazza and you want to ask a question. First of all, when you post your code in the question, two things is you can ask questions publicly or you can ask questions privately. And up here, you can say post to entire class or post to individual student / instructors. And we want this to be a question. So here, if you type instructors, then all of the instructors will be able to answer your question. Note that instructors, if you post the entire class, the instructors can still see your post. And so the wider your audience is, the better an answer you get, the more quickly you'll get an answer. So I would recommend ask your questions publicly and make sure to tag them correctly. Step 5. And write a summary that is something about what your error is, not just the name of the assignment. So here, let's see, double negative function wrong value. Take a look here at the posts that are similar. This might help answer your question right away. And then you're going to want to write your post. Now this is important. You always need to include and show what your error is. So if you just post, my code isn't working, you're not going to get an answer very quickly, or even maybe at all, because we can't help you without knowing what the issue is. So you need to come in here and show what the error message that you see looks like. So here, I see that this is my traceback, and it says assertion error 361 not equal to -38. So you can take a screenshot, come over here, and hit my error message is, oops, I'll just take a screenshot again here. Now these error messages are okay to share publicly, okay, because no other student is, a student can't copy your error message. You also want to describe your problem. So how would I describe this succinctly? I've been working the double function in lab 5. I tested it in Mimir, and when I put in a number, multiplies that number by itself. So 10 becomes 100. But when I run the tests on the mirror, oops, I tested on in Replit, they fail. See my error message. This alone might be useful. So you might get an answer just based on the error message. Sometimes you actually have a problem in your code and you can't understand what's wrong. So sometimes you write some code, and a good example is like total equals 1, total times equals, let's see, plus equals num, return total. If I try running this, why does it say invalid syntax? I'm really confused. Well, the way you would want to ask, if you were to include this in your post, if this was your code, you would come over here and you would say, here is my code, and there's this button right here, a curly brace, then a semicolon, and a closed curly brace. You click that, and in here you can paste your code. Make sure you paste it inside of this, this code block, because that preserves the indentation so we can actually read your code. If you post it outside, all of the indentation goes away. So we can't tell what's inside of your function. We can't tell what's inside of your conditionals. We actually really can't tell much. So make sure that you post code inside of the code block. Now finally, if you're posting code, do not post the question publicly if it is a graded assignment. So this means for labs and for homeworks, you should not make any posts public if they have your code in them, whether it's in a screenshot or in the in this code block. The reason being is that other students would be able to see your code and they might copy your code. And my plagiarism detection system would catch that you have identical code to someone else, and I wouldn't know why. You could tell me, oh, no, I posted on Piazza, but I would have no kind of way of telling who copied from who. And so we don't want to get in that kind of a situation. So any post that contains graded code has to be made private to instructors. You'll notice I said earlier that by making a private post, you have a smaller audience. So if you want to make a public post, you can do so as long as you have just a little bit of code, only the line that's causing an error, or the lines that are causing an error. You don't want to show all of your code if you're posting it publicly. You could do something like this. Here is the line that has the error. What's wrong? And that's it. That's the kind of post that, this is how you would write up a post. And finally, I'll make this a private post so it doesn't show up to everyone right now. Instructors, what's my question? And so you can see it shows up right here. Double negative function, wrong value. And make sure to watch for the instructor answer or for follow-up discussions. A TA, if they need more information, they'll either ask in the instructor answer or in the follow-up discussion. And so just watch out for that and make sure to provide information quickly. That's it for now. One more thing I'll add is if you want to debug your own code, sometimes it's helpful to use the Python tutor, which is linked right here at the top. So if you click that link, you paste your code in, and you visualize execution. If there's a syntax error like this, it'll point out where the syntax error is. In this case, there should be a plus equals. It won't tell you how to fix it. But if you have some logic, if your code isn't doing what you think it's supposed to be doing, you can, oops, we need to actually call our function to see the call stack. Double, I don't know, 12. You can actually run through your code step by step what happens. So num is 12, total equals 1. We add 12 to the total and return, yeah, 12 to the total, yep, to get 13 and return the total. And this is helpful for tracking down bugs in your logic. That's it. Best of luck, and keep asking questions on Piazza. If you see someone's question that you can answer, go ahead and answer it. The TAs will really appreciate your help. All right, bye.